Hi, I'm Kirby Allison. Happy as always to be back here in London in pursuit of quality, craftsmanship, and tradition. Indeed, one not search hard to find an abundance of all three in this great city. From the bespoke tailoring on Savile Row to the shoemaking on Jermyn Street, from the grand hotels to the private clubs. Indeed, one finds quality, craftsmanship, and tradition even in the means of transportation in London. And by that, I mean London's iconic and famous black cabs. That's right, in a place that you may least expect it, one finds quality, craftsmanship, and tradition here in London. So I thought in today's video, it was long overdue to jump in a black cab, to grab a tour of London, and to learn about the incredible skill that these cab drivers epitomize. So join me as we explore the world of quality, craftsmanship, and tradition. Taxi! Well, Tom, it's great to finally meet you.
And yourself.
Yeah. You know, of course, Tom Hutley has his own YouTube channel, Tom the Taxi Driver. And I think as far as London black cabs are concerned, you're the man.
Well, thank you, yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things, traveling to London, it took me probably a little bit too long to figure out, is really just how incredible the black cabs are here. And I think as an American, there's often an underappreciation of black cab drivers. In so many ways, they are, really the preeminent means of transportation here in London, surpassing, private limos, Ubers, and all else. And there's this incredible history. And I was hoping that you might take a little bit of time to really explain that to us, and maybe starting with the knowledge, which really serves as the foundation of black cab drivers, and was one of the things that once I fully myself understood that, was just astounded at the amount of work that goes in to actually qualifying to be licensed as a black cab driver here in London.
Yeah, so the knowledge, you mentioned it there, the knowledge of London, and that's a capital T, capital K, serves as many things really to the integrity and quality of London black cab drivers. Of course, the most part that most people think of is the in-depth study of all of the streets of London. So it's said that we learn up to about 25,000 streets, points of interest, places of interest, really so we know this place inside out.
Yeah.
You might not use those streets on an everyday basis, but every now and again, like a professional chef, you have them in the back of your mind that one day you might need to use that for a certain occasion or for a certain instance.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible amount of information to memorize. And the knowledge really does require that black cab drivers completely memorize literally every single street in London in order to qualify as a black cab driver.
Yeah, exactly that. And also as well, how large the task is and how long it can take is a bit of a character building exercise. So as much as it's about the knowledge itself and the memorization and the skill of knowing where you're going, it's more the aptitude test that you're gonna stay the course. And the only people that earn one of these badges are the people that can really stick it out through thick and thin. So you get a higher quality of driver as a result.
In that respect, being a black cab driver is a true career and a profession. It's not merely a job. How long does it take to go through the process of completing the knowledge?
This is the crazy thing, is that there's no defined end point. It's not like going for a university degree where you pass 1 year and then you move into the next year and you're kind of sequential. If you looked at the examination process, it's kind of like a giant game of snakes and ladders. So nearer to the end of your knowledge journey, if your standard starts to slip, you can get knocked back to preceding stages, all the way back to the beginning if your standard slips that much. So on average, it takes between 2 to 4 years But I've heard of men and women that have taken 5 years, 7 years. Some instances it's taken 10 years because it's not a directly sequential path.
Yeah. And it's a full-time job, isn't it?
Very much so. The knowledge itself, we have a saying whereby if it doesn't take over your life, you're not doing it correctly.
That's incredible. So you're studying the knowledge. I mean, is this just something you're doing in a classroom, or, how is it actually?
It's a mixture. So it's a mixture of map work. So that's actually physically sitting in front of a map and drawing up routes along the map to make sure you're getting what's called on the cotton. So the most direct route as a crow would fly, effectively. But we also do calling over, where you have to orally recite the route, and that's kind of like a conversation between you and the examiner. And also you have to physically come out and see the streets, because one of London's only 100% disabled accessible vehicles, meaning that we've got to know how we can unload and pick up a passenger. So it's crucial to know exactly where the door of an establishment is. Is there a disabled entrance? All of these variables that a passenger could throw up at us.
Well, I mean, the knowledge is, extends far beyond just the knowledge of the streets and the routes. It's also knowing where certain restaurants are. I mean, oftentimes I jump into a black cab and just tell him simply where I'm going. I don't even need to give him the address. I mean, he knows immediately where that is, and not just where it is, but what the fastest route is to get there, depending on what the traffic is like at that particular moment.
Yeah, that particular moment, that's the thing. It's so live that I can see up ahead if there's a bin lorry that may block the road, or a police officer has suddenly shut the road. I have to instantly reprogram and just go, right, what's the next available route there? You mentioned about certain restaurants and things. One of the things I was tested on my knowledge was topographical knowledge on what shows are being played at which theatre. So the examiner said to me, he said, I'd like to go and see An American in Paris. What theatre is that at? And I said, well, that's the Dominion Theatre on Tottenham Court Road, sir.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I've heard rumors, and I've never actually tried this myself, that, you can actually ask a black cab driver for a tour of London. Yeah. And instead of getting in one of the big red buses, you can have your own private cab, and that they actually are exceptionally, if not even more knowledgeable as to the different landmarks than your average tour guide.
We see a lot of connections because of the street names all usually bear some kind of historical significance. So I have additional guiding badges in conjunction to my knowledge of London, and it's probably comparable with, say, like a prison convict who's within the confines of a certain area all day, every day. They know that place inside out, and every day I get to come out and work, I get to just extract.
Well, it's not quite a prison. Yeah.
No, but that limited space, I can extract different bits of information and understand how it all works and feeds into one another. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And are you meeting a lot of people along the way as well?
Yeah, and I pick up so much from different people. So a really naive question from someone who's never visited London before can completely throw me because I've never seen it in that new perspective. Sometimes I take it for granted that I see it all the time. Yeah. So I'm always wanting to keep my knowledge as fresh and up to date.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the moment that really just totally, tipped the scales for me in terms of deciding that I was only going to use black cabs was this one night. A bunch of friends and I were, in an area of London at the Khan Institute, which is a little bit difficult to get in. And of course, being American, the first thing we thought of was to just call an Uber. So we, hailed an Uber on our phone, and we could see the Uber, kind of come, not figure out how to get in, and then ultimately cancel. So that happened after, 10 or 15 minutes. So we hailed another one on the app. The same thing, cab driver, Uber driver shows up, can't get in, circles, and cancels. Finally, after 30 minutes of waiting, I say, look, I'll run out to the street, and I'll find a black cab for us, and I'll bring him in. So I run out, they're still waiting, trying to call their Uber. Well, about the time that I find a black cab driver, some Uber finally gets in. So I tell my friends, look, let's just meet back at the club. Well, on a Friday night, the black cab driver was able to get back to the club a full 30 minutes faster than the Uber driver.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I realized that, however much more a black cab costs, which really is not that much more than an Uber, it's absolutely worth their knowledge and their skill as a driver in being able to navigate this city efficiently, safely, and more importantly, quickly.
Yeah. And against popular belief, some people think that we go around the houses because we work on a metered system. Now, the meter is actually a price set by Transport for London. So they look after the buses, the London Underground network. We have no control on the pricing of that.
Yeah.
But that meter is actually favoured if I start a job and finish it quickly, because there's a starting figure.
Yeah.
So in my best interest, I want to get you in my cab and get you to your destination as quickly as possible. And if you think about it, I might be more likely to get a tip if I do that, because it's going to be a much more efficient service for you. I've actually provided much better value. So we like to be able to be very efficient like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes someone hails me down, and as soon as they tell me the destination, I can say to them, the moment they get in, it might be quicker if I drop you on the other side of the street, because for me to get you directly outside the door might add another 5 minutes to your journey.
Yeah.
And a sat-nav can't discern this kind of nuanced information.
Yeah.
It's that knowledge that we all possess.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the history of black cabs? I mean, how did these come about here in London?
So we've had a taxi trade in London since the mid-17th century.
Really?
In fact, it was actually Oliver Cromwell, so there's a statue of him in this area, who actually first gave license to the hackney carriages of the time. Obviously, this would have been horse and cart. And over the years, it's then evolved. The formalised knowledge that we know of today is said to date back to 1851. And that was from the... 1851.
Really? 1851?
1851. And that was where the Great Exhibition was held.
What is this right here, just real quick? This is the Abbey, right?
No, so this is House of Parliament.
The House of Parliament, of course, with Big Ben.
So previously, Palace of Westminster. There's a statue of Cromwell out there as well.
Everything is so beautiful with all the flags.
It's wonderful.
So talk about that. So 1851 was, really the point at which there became a knowledge within the taxi cab.
Yes. So there already was taxi drivers of the day.
And what a taxi cab drivers back in, the 17th century, what did that look like?
Not great. When you look back at the history...
But they were carriages or, people on horses?
Yeah, so it's kind of a similar system to what we've got now, whereby you, the passenger, have your own separated compartment. You would be inside of like a coach kind of cabriolet, it was actually called. And that's where the term cab comes from. It comes from the word cabriolet. And the driver would be on the roof or, controlling the horses out the front. And wasn't that fun a job, because they'd be exposed to all the wind, the rain, the cold weather that we have here in the winters. So that's kind of how that setup looked. Come 1851, and partly the reason why it was called to have such a formalised process was the Great Exhibition of London. And that Great Exhibition was set up by Prince Albert, so Queen Victoria's husband. And it was kind of the first World's Fair. Look how good the British Empire is doing and all these things we're bringing to Britain and how great we are. But the taxi drivers of the day were terrible.
Really?
They were shocking. And in years gone by, because of how strenuous the job was, being on the roof, being subjected to all the weather conditions, the taxi drivers didn't really like driving the coaches. They just preferred to go to the pub.
Well,
so if you couldn't find a taxi...
That's a very British pastime.
Yeah, very British. Because the pub is a much more warmer, cosier environment. So it created two problems. Firstly, you couldn't find a taxi driver or a cab driver. And if you could, there was a very high likelihood they were intoxicated. So the knowledge set about this standardized process.
I can only imagine the mayhem of...
well, it was.
Driving a vehicle drunk's one thing, but
when I look back at it,
a carriage with a horse is a whole nother.
It's staggering that we even have a trade today when we look at the crashes and incidents that happened back then. It was such the polar opposite of what we have today. It would have been chaos on the streets. But yes, because the drivers didn't really know where they were going either, it was deemed to be one of the failures of the Great Exhibition. The Great Exhibition was so good at the profit it generated. It afforded many of the institutions and museums around, near the Royal Albert Hall and the Victoria and Albert Museum. But the taxi drivers were terrible. So they said, we need to sort this out.
What's this right here?
Oh, so on the left, that's horse guards.
Okay, and there are the horses,
the King's
the
horse
soldiers
guards.
mounted on the horses.
Yeah, so the King's horse-mounted regiment. I didn't quite see the colours that they were, but they would either be the Royals and Blues or the King's Lifeguards. You can tell that depending on the colour of the uniform.
Yeah. So the status of the black cabs at that time in 1851, you said, was considered one of the failures of the Great Fair.
So they introduced this knowledge process, and since then it's just kind of evolved over the years as London has, of course, grown. Some people think, well, why not just use a sat-nav? But there is so much nuanced information within London, restaurants and pubs and everything all just opening on what seems like a weekly basis. It's always changing, it's always evolving. You've only got to look at building work going on to know that how popular this is as a place and always growing. 1851,
so Prince Albert was the one that kind of instituted the knowledge?
It was like I don't know if it would have been Prince Albert specifically, because there was a whole committee that worked on the Great Exhibition. It's just that the Great Exhibition was Prince Albert's kind of legacy. That was his big thing that he'd done in his life before he died at a relatively young age.
And so from that point then, actually qualifying as a black cab driver became quite rigorous, and it became a true profession with a standard.
Yes, yeah, and it kind of it was able to weed out some of those chances, because there was like a sunk cost that you would have to do to earn your badge. Prior to 1851, drivers would just give the reins of their horses over to just young children because they would be too busy in the pub, and they could just get young children just go, look, just take the cab for a bit, because there was no standard to it. They were licensed, so there was controls on the numbers of taxis, but it wasn't like a driver standard. It was like anyone could get a taxi. Whereas now, by contrast, every single London taxi you will see out on the streets here has had to complete the knowledge. It's not something that can be passed down. It has to be earned.
Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit more about some of the traditions. It means that this profession, in its current form, has existed for over 170 years.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, again, one of the things I love about London is just the quality, the craftsmanship, the tradition here is so rich.
Well, what's cool about London taxi drivers as well, and it seems almost a bit counterintuitive, we're all licensed by Transport for London, but we are all self-employed.
Okay. So do you own your own taxi?
Yeah, this is my own vehicle, yeah.
Okay.
Some of the taxis in London are rented from proprietors, but Transport for London keeps us all in line and holds us to a high standard. We have to go through many things actually to ensure the livelihood and to ensure we get to renew our badge every 3 years. So things like a criminal record check. This vehicle has to be 100% disabled accessible. There's very limited vehicles that we can have. But yes, we are self-employed. So we all work for ourselves. So we are all each responsible for upholding that high standard. And I think that's testament to the knowledge of London. It's kind of like, it adds a bit of camaraderie to all of us cab drivers. We're effectively in direct competition to one another. But if there's a particular area of town where people need taxis, we're very much customer and people first. We have to let our fellow drivers know there's someone around the corner there that needs to go somewhere. Like, everyone come to this part of town. And that's still like a tradition that we do. We help one another out.
Well, I have certainly found, for one, every taxi cab driver to just be a great person. I mean, one of the things I really enjoy are conversations that I've had with the black cab drivers. And it's an opportunity to really get an incredible sense of what's going on in the city, even just, kind of politically or historically, just of that moment. But then I've also found an incredible camaraderie and professionalism amongst the black cab drivers themselves just with one another. I mean, they're not rude to one another. They're not honking at each other. You know, a black cab driver will always allow another black cab to pull out in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, you know, just the integrity there. I've never once felt unsafe in a black cab. I mean, I would feel incredibly safe and confident of putting my wife in a black cab, you know, even in the middle of the night without any fear of anything happening. And again, you know, that all goes back to the integrity and the rigor with which it takes to qualify as a black cab driver.
Yeah, it's that standard that it's knowing that every single taxi that you see has that same qualification and profession. So it's not going to be one guy who's going to, you know, rip you off or take you around the houses, because their whole livelihood, their profession, their badge they've spent so long to earn is at risk. I have people hail me down and they'll load in a couple of kids, you know, maybe like 8 and 6 years old, and they'll say, can you take these to this address? We're in London, a major capital city in the world.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? It's incredible.
No, not at all.
I feel so honoured that I get to do that. In terms of like the camaraderie and the safety that us drivers have with one another, we have a lot of female drivers coming into the profession now, because you think about it, it's quite a flexible job, but because there's always a black cab nearby. If someone runs into any trouble, like I as a driver, if I have any troubles with passengers, it's very likely that I can pull over and then get help from a nearby driver. You see it when a driver might break down, there's usually someone there to help them out. It's a real nice to know that we've all gone through that same experience of the knowledge.
Well, you certainly all have each other's backs. Well, you touched on something which was just the black cabs themselves. I mean, it's another cornerstone of the black cab service that I think makes it a luxury or premium service, is how purpose-built these taxis are.
Yeah.
And again, compared to, you know, what was the Crown Victoria for the longest time in New York, which had no room in the back seat, the black cabs are exceptionally comfortable. And again, I'm always astounded at just how much you can fit into one of these. I mean, you can easily, in this one, fit 6 people plus luggage to the airport.
Yeah, when you think about it like that as well, you know, splitting a ride with 6 people, if you're doing like a short journey across London, it works out cheaper than getting a bus, because everyone's having to contactless touch the bus to get on the bus or get on the tube, and you're getting door-to-door service in basically a private vehicle.
Yeah.
How great is that?
I mean, for the longest time, I made the mistake of doing the Heathrow Express from London Heathrow into town. And, you know, although they advertise a very quick trip, you know, in between London Heathrow and whatever it is, King's Cross, you know, you still have to get from King's Cross to your final destination.
Yeah, you have to get...
Whenever you factor all that in and the cost of the fares, this, that, and the other, I mean, you're really better off just taking a black cab. And that's just if you're traveling alone. The moment you have 2 people doing it, well, at that point, you certainly might as well just take a black cab. And if you've got 3, it's cheaper to take a black cab.
Well, I sometimes mention it with passengers. They might spend £20 just getting to Paddington so they can get the Heathrow Express, or down to Victoria so they can get the Gatwick Express. And, you know, that's £20 off of what could have just been a £75 ride out to the airport. And like you say, if there's 2 or 3 of them, they might end up spending more money for a more inconvenient journey. Let's go from the hotel all the way to Heathrow, one cost, no changes. It's a no-brainer.
So what's some other kind of interesting historical stories, or just some of your own anecdotes?
About the actual taxi that we're in, if we want to touch on that, I briefly mentioned that it's the word cab comes from cabriolet, because it was like a separate, and much like the design we have today, you have your own separate partition away from the driver, because you would be a member of, say, the upper class, middle class, and I would just be a working class driver. So this is that kind of separation that you would see a lot in the Victor vehicle. So I often pick up people from business, and they might be conducting some sort of a business call in the back. And, you know, it's a private partition. I'm just up here driving away, happy as Larry.
Yeah.
They can do that in the back.
Yeah.
Also, you notice that the room in there. Now, there's actually, it's actually said the reason why taxis are so roomy in this way was that so gentlemen who were getting in the cab wouldn't have to remove their top hat.
Yeah.
So you could still keep wearing your headwear whilst you was in the taxi.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, of course, we have the electric cabs, which, you know, we're driving in right now.
Incredibly, we've kind of gone full circle. Because if you go back through the history books, I believe it's around 1897 or so, there was actually electric taxis in London.
No kidding.
After they moved from horses, there was a short period before like combustion engines became like a big popular thing, where we had electric taxis. They could only do a couple of miles or so, and they had to replace the batteries to keep them going. But it seems so weird that people forget about this part of history, that it repeats itself.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed the new electric cabs. I mean, there's even more room in these. And I guess there's 3 current versions to the actual taxis right now, the black cabs. You've got the slightly kind of older, more traditional ones, which have petrol engines.
Yep.
You've got this, which is fully electric. And then you have the little mini buses, which again, at no additional cost, offers an exceptional amount of room.
Yeah, so that's the important thing to point out there, is that all of the drivers will still have done that same knowledge. Yeah. Some people say, well, can I get in a red taxi? Can I get in a black taxi? Like, what's the difference? We're all the same. So long as it has that word taxi on it, that is the most important piece, because that word taxi is actually protected within law. So, and funnily enough, the word taxi actually comes from the word taximeter. Okay. So I have a taximeter in this taxi, which of course calculates the fare of our journey. And the word taxi is a contraction of that word. So taximeter or taxi is a vehicle that is fitted with one of those taxi meters.
Or just simply black cab.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, the word taxi is protected in law. So you can't have an Uber driver or a private hire driver use that word taxi. Even in journalistic articles, they might use the word taxi, but it's very much an exclusive term just for this vehicle.
Yeah. And are drivers like such as yourself available for private hire?
So we have the exclusive right of being able to apply for hire. And now that is where someone sticks their hand up on the street and hails a taxi down. Okay. That is the norm. That is the custom in London. Yeah. If you want to hail a taxi, because some people think, well, how do I do it? Do I book it? Do I have to? No, you just stand on the street, put your arm up. If you can see the light illuminated, that means that driver is available for hire. You can hire them down, but you can also privately hire the taxi driver as well. So if you like me or any one of my colleagues that you speak with in your time in London, you can say, hey, can I have a business card? I might be going back to the airport, or can you pick us up for our dinner later on? They'd be more than obliging to do so.
Yeah. And what are the benefits there, I mean, that a black cab driver would have an offer over, say, even a limousine driver?
The biggest one is that it doesn't draw attention to the person inside of the taxi. Mm-hmm. There's so many cabs about, no one bats an eyelid. They're part of London streets, just like a red bus going past. Yeah. So I frequently pick up celebrities because it's the most inconspicuous and easiest way for them to get around. Yeah. If they hop in a limousine, that just draws more attention to themselves.
I mean, is it true that the royal family has black cabs that they've used?
I was just about to move on to that. So the late Prince Philip, of course, Queen Elizabeth II's husband, he actually owned a metro cab. So he could just hop in this cab and just drive it around London. And because he was just an older guy, he just looked like a normal, everyday black cab driver.
Completely incognito.
What's that, sorry?
Completely incognito.
Straight, no one would notice the difference, just blending straight in.
Yeah. And what about the access to bus lanes? I mean, again, relative to a limo, the black cabs are able to use bus lanes. Yes. And so whenever it comes to getting through London during rush hour, you're always going to get there faster in a black cab than you would otherwise.
Yep. Being able to go through bus lanes, certain turns and restrictions. You're not allowed to drive the full length of Oxford Street, which is one of our main shopping streets that people come and visit in London. You can only do that if you're in a bus, a cycle, or a taxi. So there's certain routes, as well as my knowledge, so I can, pick the most quickest optimum route. There's certain routes that a sat-nav will never give me because it doesn't know I'm driving a taxi, and there's certain roads that I have access to that the general public won't. So rightly spotted. So this is a green taxi shelter, a cabman shelter. Now these date back to the late 19th century. So these would have come about after that great exhibition, once the knowledge became a prominent thing. And it's to do with the taxi drivers who would frequently go to the pub. They wanted to find a way of encouraging drivers not to go to the pub. Because of course that just diminished the quality of service.
Difficult task to do.
Yeah, very difficult task because it's such a warm and cozy place. So they had to make an environment that was just as warm and cozy, but without alcoholic beverages. And that's these green taxi shelters.
Okay.
So installed towards the later end of the 19th century, there was about 50 of these installed across London. And they function as taxi drivers only are allowed to go in and get a hot meal, hot beverages as well, and have a bit more of a camaraderie with the other drivers, because it's a lonely profession, driving a taxi. Now, these still exist to this day. There's still 13 of these green huts or green cabman shelters across London, and they are of grade 2 heritage status.
Really?
Meaning that if they get damaged or they want to modify the structure or whatever, they have to be kept to this style. So they're going to be a permanent fixture in here in London for many more decades and hopefully centuries to come.
Yeah, and are they still used by black cab drivers?
Yep, still used by black cab drivers, and they're open for takeaway for the general public. So only black cab drivers are allowed inside. And inside there is a table set up, a full kitchen inside as well, that allows for up to about 10 men and women to be able to sit around the table and have a conversation about what's gone on that day maybe. But the general public can come up to a serving hatch and get.
So it's an opportunity to, I guess, use the restroom, have a nice meal, and have a pint of water.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we call that shelter, they all have different names, and us cab drivers, we love nicknames for places. So that one's called the All Nations, because it's very close to lots of embassies in this area. So across the road we have the Dutch embassy.
So, I mean, these people that work these green huts, I mean, do they kind of develop, reputations and kind of, amongst the cab drivers as, this one does a great, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, so it's actually run by a trust. So it's like a charitable trust that helps maintain the standard of these green shelters. And yeah, each one, there's like a different proprietor inside of those shelters that,
So which one's your favorite? Do you have one?
I quite like, what have I got? So there's one on Warwick Avenue, so somewhat close to Paddington and Little Venice area. I sometimes pop into this one here, the All Nations. It's good because they're dotted around London, so no matter where you finish up or where you get a job to, you can always quickly nip to one.
Yeah.
I pulled up here anyway to point out that statue of Prince Albert.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is roughly the area where the Great Exhibition took place.
Okay. It's an incredible structure. And the Royal Albert Hall right here, of course, being even from Dallas, we've got great performing arts, but I'll never forget, the first time I went to go see the ballet at the Royal Albert Hall just blew me away, the caliber of talent.
Yeah.
And even coming from a place like Dallas, which has a very, well-regarded ballet, just the caliber here in London is just leagues ahead of anything I'd ever seen before. Obvious and as plain as day. And the other thing, interesting kind of trivia, and I think you can do this at most of the theaters, is you can get same-day returns where, if you didn't plan ahead and you have some free time or free evening, you can actually go to the box office and buy a ticket the same day as the performance that is from maybe someone who's a season ticket holder that wasn't able to make it. So they surrender that ticket back to the box office.
They can surrender.
And then the proceeds then benefit the actual organization of whatever the performing arts is.
Because they're able to make use of that ticket.
Yeah.
So I didn't know they could surrender
small little kind of trivial trick in London of just, if you want to go see a performance, you didn't plan exceptionally far ahead, oftentimes you can still get same-day returns.
Yeah.
This is an absolute beautiful statue. So, are there any customs or protocols that, as a passenger in a black cab that maybe as an American that's unfamiliar with these that one should follow?
I think the biggest thing is just to sort of respect the driver.
Yeah.
This is my own vehicle, so it's always nice when people respect that I own this vehicle. I'd like to look after the vehicle.
Yeah, of course.
Also, when you communicate with the driver, I think because of the internet age that we live in, people are very just postcodes. Let's just Google our result. And sometimes people interface with me. They talk with the driver, but they just say, "Oh, I want to go to WC2R, blah blah blah." Now I know where WC2 is. That's West Central. We're talking the West End. But it's just much easier if we just have a nice conversation. It's "Oh, hi driver, I would like to go to the Royal Opera House. Just that kind of people interaction. We are, we love this city. We are very much a big part of the city, and any chance to have a good conversation with the driver. Most drivers are always up for it, but I respect that people also use this cab as their kind of personal mobile office.
Well, I mean, black cab drivers take pride in their work, and I think that you honor that by respecting the cab driver, because it is a premium service. I mean, all the cabs that I've ever gotten into have been very well taken care of. They're all exceptionally well maintained and safe. And the black cab drivers, again, went through incredible efforts to really master the knowledge so that they can do their job at the absolute highest level to the benefit of their passengers.
But at the same time as well, it is a mutual exchange. So us drivers, we really like to look after our passengers. Sometimes some people will get in and say, "Oh, driver, I'm running late. Can you drop me there 10 minutes ago?" And obviously, I want to get people to their destination as quick as possible. I respect that's why they've got a cab. But there's always a good way to ask about it. And we love helping people out. I love catching wind if someone might have a bit of a mobility issue, and I know that I can get out, I can get the step and the ramp out of the cab to make it a lot easier for them. And even to make it more accommodating, we are customer first. We're nothing without customers and Londoners and people who want to use our service. It's brilliant.
What about tipping?
It's a mixed bag because of how multicultural London is. The main thing I find is that because we provide the goods up front, because we provide the service up front and we drop them outside, tipping is kind of more of a accepted thing. It's more of a customary thing in a cab. You're not paying for it in advance. We're kind of taking a risk by dropping you there. But I respect that some cultures, it's not as big a thing. So Middle Eastern cultures, it's not as much of a culture. But of course, an American accent, it's always welcomed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always tip my cab driver. I mean, at least if not rounding up a few pounds, to the at least the nearest 0 or 5. Because again, I mean, the taxi cab drivers, I mean, an incredible amount of effort went into becoming a taxi driver. One of the other things I appreciate is that all the black cabs are outfitted with contactless payment. 5 or 10 years ago, you used to probably need banknotes or cash. Now, I mean, as long as you have your phone and you have Apple Pay, you can, contactless pay your taxi cab driver.
Yeah, a good, probably 85% of our transactions now are card-based. Every single London taxi has to have a credit card machine fitted in the back, in the passenger compartment. And that then means that, again, standards of service, every single cab you will see, you will have some form of paying.
Yeah. One of the other things I appreciate, again, contrasting this to American taxis, is that there's no television screen strapped to the back of, your window blasting advertisements at me. I mean, again, you get in a black cab and there's just something civilized about it.
Yeah. And
I mean, like so much of London. That's what I love.
Well, some of the taxis here do have advertising on the outside. Now, a lot of the time, these are generally owned by a garage that rents it out to an individual. But you will still see a lot of individual taxi drivers, and particularly people that own their own cabs, that will keep them plain, nice plain black. Actually, the history behind that was that when it was primarily proprietor owned, black is a much easier colour to touch up any damages. Because of course, if the drivers would damage them, whatever, and it's just kind of a tradition that's stuck. But for me, there's no better advertisement than a clean, plain black cab. I don't want any advertisements on this. I can make a bit of money by doing that, but that's not London. That's not a black cab if it's got advertisements on it.
Well, I think it's one of the, I really, have come to appreciate the London black cabs as one of the greatest and certainly most unique elements of London. I mean, there's no other city in the world that I've visited that has a means or method of transportation as professional, as safe, as clean, and really as civilized as a black cab. So, now I have to say that whenever I'm in London, the only thing that I would ever consider is a black cab. So, Tom, thank you so much for your time, of course, for everything you do for quality craftsmanship and tradition. And if someone, wanted to actually hire you out to pick them up at the airport or to take them to the theater, how does one go about doing that, and how would one get in touch with you?
So just a Google search for Tom the taxi driver. I'm fairly well optimized there, but yeah, my YouTube channel as well, Tom the Taxi Driver, or my website, which is just tom.taxi.
Tom.taxi, oh, well, that's nice. And so I would imagine you have your mobile or email kind of credentials?
Yeah, all of my contact details are there. I offer tours of London, as well as transfers.
Now, how much does a tour cost, just out of curiosity? I mean, like, generally speaking.
Yeah, so for like a 4-hour tour is about £250.
4 hours?
Yeah, because...
And you can talk for that long?
Yeah, well, also as well, there's only so much that can be seen from the cab. So I respect the fact that whilst I love driving round, it'd be good to just sort of stop every now and again and park up and actually admire some of these great buildings of London. So that's part of it as well, that we actually get to see real London.
Of course, I love London and British culture so much that whenever I'm using a black cab, I'm supporting Britain, because 100% of the money as a privately owned driver stays with you and in this country, versus something like Uber where, 70% of that is probably not going to the driver and going to who knows where.
That's the difficult thing with Uber, and I do really feel for a lot of their drivers, because at the end of the day, they're out here just trying to earn some money. Like, that's what people want to do, right? We all want a job, a profession that rewards us for our hard work and our efforts. But as you touched on, because it goes through a large company like Uber, they'll take a large chunk of that commission from the driver for their work. When you get a black cab, you are interfacing with that driver directly. So you are paying me for my goods and services. Yeah. It's probably one of the last sort of real grafts or trades. A bit like if you went and saw a market stall trader or someone within a shop or a retail establishment that is their own. So yes, I have to hire this meter. Yes, the price is set by Transport for London, but everything you pay me goes to me, and that then ensures that I can pay for my vehicle, pay for my license renewal, ensure that the vehicle is of the high standard that you see. But importantly, so I can earn a good living, and makes me want to come back out here. And
again, I see taking a black cab is one of the simplest ways to support quality craftsmanship and tradition here in London. I mean, one may not be able to go to Savile Row or Jermyn Street, to patronize one of these great heritage houses, doing craft at the highest level, but you find it everywhere. And here, something as simple as a black cab, which everyone needs to use to get from point A to point B. You're supporting British culture and, of course, this city's commitment to quality craftsmanship and tradition.
It just makes me feel warm every time when you sort of hear that. But there's not also like one kind of cab passenger. It's a huge spectrum of people. Because there's so many different use cases why you might need a cab. You might have not planned to get a taxi that day because London's a great city, you might want to walk round, but your plans might change because it rains. Yeah. Okay, let's hail a cab. You might have had a very long day at the theatre, gone shopping, and there's a few of you, and you say, let's all jump in the cab and we'll split the cost. Or you might be hopping from meeting to meeting, you maybe need to get to that all-important job interview, and you need to get there. So it's worth every single penny.
What are some of your most interesting black cab stories? I mean, celebrities you've picked up or places you've been asked to drive people? As you look back on your career, kind of what is it, what are those surreal moments?
It's some of the surrealist moments is when you go beyond what the job expectation is. So fundamentally, it's driving people from A to B. But during lockdown, for instance, I found that I was helping local Londoners with their shopping. I was helping them run them to the store, load up their shopping bags, and then taking them home and then unloading them at the door. So it's not a normal black cab sort of job role, but I can accommodate to that. Celebrities and people that I pick up, it always jars you when you see a hand go up and you recognize someone, and I almost kind of forget where I'm going. I get so starstruck. But the knowledge kicks in, the route comes to me. Some of the people I've had Brian Johnson from AC/DC, the lead singer of AC/DC. Of course, really deep Geordie accent, which I had to get him to repeat his destination about 3 times before I actually got it out of him. Taking Noel Fielding to see the Strokes at the Camden Roundhouse. So not only are you interacting with some of these people, and they are just going about their everyday life at the end of it. So I always let them have their space, and I'm not one to, try and interrogate. But it's nice to know that you're kind of part of their lives in some way, that you're enabling them to go do these great things within this great city.
Any Royals?
I haven't, but on a tour I came very close to, I was in very short distance of seeing William and Kate. They were actually pulling into the entrance of Kensington Palace. And I was so enamored because I was pretty much outside their front door almost, when you think of it that way. You're just seeing them come back home after maybe a lengthy tour somewhere.
What about in most interesting destinations? I mean, have you ever dropped someone off at Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace?
One of them, which I love doing, is there's between Terminal 2 and 3 at Heathrow, there's a Virgin upper class wing. And it's like something out of James Bond. You go up this weird sort of spiral driveway and it leads to this roundabout that you feel like you're in some kind of like henchman's lair. It's really sort of unsettling, but at the same time really opulent as well. I'd never done that, so whenever someone says that the upper class wing with Virgin, I'm all giddy with excitement.
Well, I need to figure out how to do that. Beautiful city, London. So Tom, what hours do you normally drive?
So in terms of hours, I usually start around 2 p.m. and then I finish up around about midnight.
Are you regulated in terms of how much you can drive?
No, so there is no regulation on how much we can drive as taxi drivers. But looking at it consistently, and also the quality of the service we provide, it doesn't make sense to try and really extend the hours or try and burn the candle at both ends. Mm-hmm. I've had long shifts in the past, like say New Year's Eve or something like that, but you find the next day you can't go to work the next day because you're just so knackered or you're so tired from working that whole shift, and as a result you're back to square one. You might as well just do consistent, reliable hours. So I come out 5 days a week usually, sometimes 6, and they're just sort of good 9 hours or so.
Yeah. And you said the fares were metered. Is there surge pricing? Because that's one of the things that you see with Uber is that, the fares are, might be reasonable until it's raining or everyone else needs an Uber as well.
Yeah, so as our metered fares are set by Transport for London, we have no influence on what that meter does. It doesn't matter if it's rain or shine. Mm-hmm. There might be a slight variation between daytime rate and evening rate or weekends.
And is there a slight kind of premium for holidays?
Yeah, but only a marginal percentage increase. Yeah. So you're talking about like 7% or something like that.
Which is reasonable and fair.
Yeah, because of course there are more unsociable hours for the driver to come out late at night, for instance. But my cautionary tale for anyone who does get an Uber is that the prices are just unregulated. Yeah. They can just decide that they want to put the price up because there's less drivers about, because it's raining. There's even horror stories of when the terrorist attacks took place in London that prices were surged price when people with their desperate desire, time of need to get out of London. Yeah. And the
here
prices
they were,
going through the roof.
Gouging customers.
So London Taxi is that
Yeah.
same metered, reliable fare.
The other thing is that, is there a difference in fare between the different size of cabs? So, there's 3 different black cabs. You've got the standard one, the electric, and then the large minivans.
Every single London taxi you get in will provide the same fare. Wow. So it doesn't matter whether it's one of the Vito minibus looking kind of vans. It doesn't matter if it's the traditional style or these brand new electric cabs. They're all the same price. You can pick and choose whichever cab you like. So if you see one coming down the road that's your favourite colour, you can go for that, and it's going to cost you the same amount of money.
What about apps? Can you call a cab on an app if you're somewhere maybe that doesn't have many cabs on the street? There's
lots of different apps about, and each have their plus and minus points. So there's ones like Taxi App, Taxi Now. These are ones that are actually made by taxi drivers for taxi drivers. Yeah. And there's some larger ones like Free Now and Get. The only thing I will say with things like Free Now is that yes, they are larger, they do have a much better coverage of drivers, but they do take a bit of a premium from the driver. So it costs the driver a little bit more to be on that platform.
Okay.
And Get will sometimes add a charge on top. So the best circumstance is to get the cab on the street. By hailing them, you are interfacing with that driver directly, No one takes a cut out of that.
Yeah.
But if you are a bit further out of central London, if you are up north, if you are in a residential street somewhere and you're worried that the cab can't get to you, then certainly download one of those apps and get a black cab.
You've only increased my appreciation for all of the work that you black cab drivers do in the incredible history here. I think this is probably my stop, the Bulgari Hotel for the Edward Sahakian Lounge. But again, thank you for everything that you do to support quality craftsmanship and tradition in this incredible city. And I have to say, every single time I take a black cab, I see it as an opportunity to support craft here in London. Again, thank you for your time, and thanks for sharing so much with me about black cabs.
I really appreciate it, Kirby. Yeah. Have a great day. Take care. Oh, and be lucky.
Thanks, Tom.